Hi everyone! Yesterday I discovered a very interesting coloring tag. It's called a Colorist First and the author is JoJo's Coloring Nook. I will leave you a link to her channel. This tag isn't new and yesterday I spent the whole evening enjoying videos by other colorists and answering their questions. And today I decided that I also want to answer it. I hope that you won't be laughing at my first pictures. I laugh myself when I look at them now, but still I have a very warm feelings towards them because it was a beginning of a very happy and a very long coloring journey. It's a hobby that makes me happy every day, so it was nice to look back at the very beginning. Let's start. Question number 1. What was the first coloring book you purchased? Well, my story of coloring was quite unusual. It started more than 4 years ago, and at that moment I worked on quite stressful work. Because of my job, I traveled a lot, and I would say that I was in constant stress. Somehow I decided that if I would do quick travel sketches during my journeys, it would distract me from my stress, from my nervous job. So I purchased like small sketchbook, simple art supplies like couple of liners, gray colors, and I started to do my sketches. Honestly, I am awful at drawing, so I enjoyed process, but I was totally unhappy with the final results. But still, I tried to draw something like this sketch from Paris. From this one is from Germany, from Berlin. Then again from Christmas markets in Germany. And finally, the final point was when I was on business trip to Paris. Again, it was very nervous and I tried to draw something. So here I have quick sketches of some places like Jardin de Luxembourg, some views from Seine like gardens, Garten d'Austerlitz. Anyway, I enjoyed process, but results were terrible. You can see that I had only a liner and couple of gray colors. So I decided maybe I need to purchase more markers, more colors, and I went to one of Paris stores. There I purchased a couple of markers and first set of my Cotman watercolors, but also here I discovered coloring books. There were also books by Johanna Basford, by Millie Marotta, some kind of Zentangle books, but I found this beauty and I immediately fall in love. And of course I purchased it. It's Paris book by Isia Cho. Inside we have quite realistic drawings of all famous and beautiful places of Paris, and I realized that it can be a very nice souvenir even if I won't be coloring it. So I purchased this one, and this is officially my first coloring book. And also this one. Unfortunately, this book I hadn't started yet. I loved this idea that inside we also have like travel set of dried watercolors, and there were also a brush inside. Paper is quite nice, but I was afraid to start coloring and I hadn't started it yet. But during my trip to Paris I wasn't coloring in the book, but when I returned to Kiev, I gathered all my available art supplies and I started to color in it. At that moment I already had a set of Derwent Inktense, so it was my first pair, Paris book and Derwent Inktense. Next question is, what is the first supply you bought? And as I said, even before I started to color, I thought about doing sketches, so I had set of Derwent ink pens and also set of Derwent color softs. Why? It's because at that moment in our art stores we didn't have a good selection of pencils. We had only color softs or Czech brand of Mondeluz pencils. And of course I tried to purchase a set of pencils. I was so impressed by the look of Derwent Color Soft 72 set. You know, in my childhood, I never liked to color with colored pencils. They always were pale and hard, so I hated them. So when I saw this beautiful set, I was so impressed that I immediately purchased it. And in smaller set of Inktense pencils. So they were my first art supplies. I tried to use them in this book. Well, it was quite fun, and my pictures looked like this. Here I used color softs, and here I used Inktense. And here I used Inktense. Everything looked terrible, but I realized that I do enjoy this hobby and that I need to extend my collection of coloring books and art supplies. Next question is first non-budget friendly set of pencils. As I said, I started from not budget set of color softs. So when I did couple of pictures with color softs, at that moment I already purchased this Ukrainian edition of Johanna Basford Forest, it's Enchanted Forest. I did couple of pictures here and here. And my third was this one. I realized that I want more art supplies, but there weren't any decent pencils. Even now we don't have big variety of pencils, but at least we have now Faber-Castell pencils available, and at that moment all I was able to find were Koh-i-Noor Mondeluz. I went and purchased 36 colors of these watercolor pencils. I was very pleasantly surprised how bright and soft they are. And I also found a set of 48 pencils by Faber-Castell, but it's series for children. But still I loved them and I used them in this book. And I also purchased a set of soft pastels, so on my first works all backgrounds are made with soft pastels. So I started from not budget, then I tried to purchase at least something, so I purchased a couple of budget sets, and at that moment I started to watch YouTube tutorials. And somehow my pencils didn't behave as pencils on the screen behaved. So after probably 6 months I realized that my hobby is serious and I need to invest into Prismacolors. So that was my journey. Inktense and color softs, then Faber-Castell Eco and Mondeluz. I even tried some marker fine pencils, but I didn't like them, and after some time I went to Prismacolors. Let's move to the question number 4. It's what is your first hard book? Well, at that moment selection of coloring books in Ukraine was very scarce, so very poor. I purchased this book, then I managed to get a couple of books printed in Russia, like Magical City and this beautiful book The Wind Carried Flowers Away. And after that I learned how to make orders from Book Depository. So my first hardcover book is Daydreams by Hannah Carson. Here there is quite famous page. First, let me show you my first page in this book. I colored it when I had only color soft pastels, so even before Prismacolors, and I enjoyed coloring flowers, but I definitely didn't enjoy doing background with pencils, and I put it away for some time until I purchased Prismacolors because I wanted results like I saw on YouTube tutorials. But here I have another quite interesting spread, and it was my first spread which I colored using watercolors. I don't know why, but for a long time I hadn't realized that I actually can use watercolors in coloring books. And thanks to my friend who sent me a link to the video where a girl colored in Daydreams using watercolors, I found my very old set of watercolors, the same set which I use now. It's White Nights, which I got from my grandfather, and I use them here on the background. And the central part is color softs, so I was so proud of this background. I was crazy happy. Even now I love this page. Maybe not all parts of it, but I remember that it was like a huge step forward in my coloring journey, so it's another of my firsts. Next question is, who was your first body colorist? Well, I can't say that I have friends who are interested in colorings, and I usually don't participate in body color alongs because I'm quite spontaneous in my choice of pages which I want to do, and usually when I need to color something, when I promise to color something, I immediately lose all inspiration, so I prefer not to participate in body coloring. The one and only thing I can remember is body coloring in the group dedicated to works by Tomislav Tomic. At that moment, I already had this Zemlya Snova for several months. I adored this book, but I was afraid to actually start coloring. And on Facebook group for Tomislav Tomic works, there were a body coloring where you got a pair, and together you selected one page and you colored it, everyone in its own way, and then you published two pictures. So because of that coloring, I did my first work in Tomislav Tomic. It was a very pleasant experience, I am very grateful, but since that time I didn't participate in such projects, so I don't have any body colorist. Next question is, which was your first color tube channel? Oh, here answer is a very easy. Peter Hewitt, she brought me into this world of coloring books. I found her channel because of Derwent Inktense. I wanted to learn how to use them better, and I discovered that she used them in Magical City, so I immediately purchased the same book. First, I tried to color from myself, not following tutorials, and my first page looked like this. And again, I was extremely proud. I thought that it's so colorful, so beautiful. And then I found a similar page from Peter Hewitt. I looked at her perfect shading, how she used various colors, and I realized that if I want to be better, to be a little bit close to Peter's result, I need to learn. So I tried to follow a lot of her tutorials. I remember that I followed this tutorial for Paris. and many other things. So Peter was my first channel and one of the best coloring channels which exist on YouTube, and every day I hope that Peter will return to us. Next question is first page you colored. Oh, and now I need to return to my Paris book. Just a moment. Here is my first color book, this one, made with Inktense pencils. I can't say that it's awful, it's not so bad. But I hope that you can say that from this start to my actual coloring there is a huge difference, at least I hope. But still I love this page. Next question is, what was your first colored portrait? Well, for a long time I was completely terrified by coloring portraits. I tried to start coloring something. I already owned a lot of books with portraits, and I tried to start like this one. It's not even a good start. And again, I was afraid that I would ruin such a beautiful image. And finally, when I decided to do a portrait, it was from Magical Dawn. And it was this relatively small portrait. I hoped that ravens and everything around would distract attention from my terrible shading. You can see that there is a lot of dirt, but at least I tried to do a skin tone and shading. It's not a disaster, and I can say that since that time my coloring skills in portraits improved a lot, and still it's not bad for the first portrait. Next question is, what was your first grayscale picture? You know that I don't like grayscales and I almost never color them, but I will try to show you my first and one of the few pictures I actually colored. I did it only because of the beauty of the designs. I would much more prefer to have the same book but in line art, but still. My grayscale pictures were from Baker's Dozen, a very nice Christmas story. And the second is this one. I would say that result looks quite spectacular and it was quite easy, but I didn't enjoy it that everything, all lighting, shadows were decided for myself and I don't have to think about it. And even if I do love the final look of it, I'm still not in love with grayscale books. Next is which was your first ever completed book? And for now I don't have any completed books. Maybe one day I will be able to finish Flowers Year by Leila Dewey, or maybe one day I will be able to finish Fairy Tales by Selina Fenwick or Magical City by Lizzie Mary Cullen. For now I would say that Fairy Tales by Selina Fenwick, they are closer, it's more probable that I would finish it, not because it has a lesser amount of unfinished pages, because I do enjoy coloring in it, and in Magical City and Flower Year somehow I lost my inspiration. So I hope that one day I will be able to show you my first finished book, but for now I have nil finished coloring books. And the only remaining question is your first coloring tag you participated. My first tag was about 10 coloring books. you would take with you on the desert island. And since that moment I enjoyed answering questions. Sometimes it's nice to have something to listen to, answers by other colorists when you color yourself, and sometimes when you answer questions, you remember about your forgotten books or forgotten art supplies, or even you look back at your coloring journey and you have some new inspiration to continue. Anyway, I really enjoyed answering these questions. I hope that I didn't babble a lot and that answers weren't very boring. Thanks for listening. As I said, a link to the author of the coloring tag will be down in the info box, and I would be happy to read your answers about your first art supplies and your first coloring book in your comments. Thanks and have a wonderful December.